I did not expect anything unusual when I first examined the building on Nevsky Prospect in St. Petersburg, officially completed in 1890. The city records were clear, a commercial structure designed in the typical late Imperial Russian style, unremarkable among the grand facades of the city's main avenue. What caught my attention was an 1891 construction photograph stored in the Russian State Historical Archive. It showed the basement-level mid-excavation, walls stripped bare, revealing a doorway beneath the main stairwell, sealed behind perfectly aligned stonework, far too precise for period masonry. The doorframe was oversized, nearly 3 meters tall, leading to a space the blueprints did not acknowledge. In an 18th century atlas nearby, the region was labeled Tartaria. Some researchers would later describe structures like this as remnants of Tartarian infrastructure, buildings partially buried by what they call the mud flood. At first, I assumed coincidence. I kept looking anyway. The building I was investigating stood at one of St. Petersburg's most prominent addresses, where Nevsky Prospect meets Bolshaya Morskaya Street. Official records placed its construction between 1889 and 1890, designed in the eclectic style common to late imperial commercial architecture. The documented purpose was straightforward: ground floor retail, upper floor offices, a basement for storage. Nothing in the municipal files suggested complexity. Yet the 1891 photograph told a different story. The basement excavation revealed stonework extending below street level, far below. The foundation walls descended at least 2 additional stories beneath the officially documented basement. This was not unusual for St. Petersburg, a city built on marshland. Deep foundations were expected. What troubled me was the quality of the lower masonry. The blocks were cut with geometric precision, their edges sharp, their alignment perfect. The upper construction, dated to 1890, was competent but rougher, typical of the period. The lower stonework looked older and more advanced simultaneously. Some alternative historians classify such anomalies as evidence of mud flood burial, where older Tartarian structures were partially submerged and later built upon. I was not prepared to accept that theory, but the photograph showed 2 distinct construction styles, one above the other, with no documented explanation. The sealed doorway appeared in only one photograph. Its proportions were wrong for a utility entrance, too tall, too wide, framed by stonework that matched the lower foundation rather than the 1890 construction above. The door itself was absent. The opening had been filled with brick and mortar, then plastered over. A renovation note from 1892 mentions closure of subterranean access, passage discontinued. No reason was given. The doorframe's precision unsettled me. Each stone was cut to identical dimensions, fitted without visible mortar gaps, aligned to within millimeters. Victorian-era masons worked with skill, but not to this tolerance. I measured the visible stonework using photogrammetric analysis. The blocks measured 60 centimeters by 30 centimeters, with corner angles precise to less than half a degree. This level of accuracy typically requires modern machining. Yet the 1891 photograph shows this stonework already in place beneath a building supposedly constructed only 2 years earlier. Either the foundation predated the official construction, or the 1890 builders possessed capabilities far beyond what period technology should have allowed. The doorway led somewhere, the archive did not say where. Before continuing, I examined the broader cartographic context. Between 1700 and 1775, European atlases consistently labeled vast regions of northern Eurasia as Tartaria, or Great Tartary. The 1706 Guillaume de Lille map shows this territory extending from the Volga to the Pacific. St. Petersburg itself, founded in 1703, appears on some early maps within or adjacent to Tartarian territories. Mainstream historians describe this as a cartographic convention, not evidence of a unified civilization. Alternative researchers argue otherwise, that the Tartarian label reflects a lost infrastructure culture, systematically erased during the 18th and 19th centuries. I did not know which interpretation was correct. But the architectural anomalies I was documenting, oversized doorways, impossible precision, buried lower floors, were appearing in buildings throughout St. Petersburg. An 1895 engineering survey noted, "Many structures along Nevsky Prospect rest upon foundations of uncertain origin, predating municipal records." The phrase echoed what I had seen in the photograph, uncertain origin. The official narrative claimed the building was constructed in 1890. The physical evidence suggested it was built upon something older, something the records did not acknowledge. I expanded my research to other buildings along Nevsky Prospect. The Singer House, completed in 1904, revealed similar anomalies. Construction photographs from 1902 show excavation crews uncovering arched chambers beneath the planned foundation, chambers with glazed brick walls and geometric precision inconsistent with any documented 19th century construction. A foreman's note from that year reads, "Lower vaults discovered during excavation, origin unknown, incorporated into foundation design, incorporated, not constructed." The chambers were already there. The arches in these chambers spanned widths that should have exceeded their structural capacity without iron reinforcement. Yet no iron was visible in the photographs. The brick curvature was mathematically precise, identical radii across multiple arches, suggesting mechanical rather than manual construction. Some Tartarian researchers identify such features as remnants of a buried infrastructure network, partially submerged by what they call catastrophic mud deposition. The official explanation that these were simply older cellars did not account for their precision, their scale, or their absence from any pre-1900 city plans. The deeper I looked, the more I found evidence of buried infrastructure. A 1907 renovation of the Passage shopping arcade uncovered what engineers described as hydraulic conduits of substantial diameter beneath the building's east wing. The conduits measured 90 centimeters in diameter, lined with glazed ceramic, and extended beyond the property boundaries in both directions. No water system in 1890 St. Petersburg required conduits of this scale. The city's official water mains measured 30 centimeters at most. A maintenance log from 1908 notes, "Conduits sealed per municipal directive, function undetermined." Function undetermined. The phrase appeared repeatedly in renovation records from this period. Engineers encountered systems they could not explain, documented them briefly, then sealed them. The passage conduits connected to a circular chamber beneath the arcade's central atrium, a chamber with the same geometric precision I had observed in the Nevsky Prospect Foundation. The chamber's dome radius measured 4.2 meters, identical to measurements I would later find in buried structures beneath buildings in Moscow, Warsaw, and Vienna. The same signature, repeated across cities across supposed construction eras. I began comparing St. Petersburg's buried chambers to similar structures in other cities. In Moscow, the gum department store, completed in 1893, sits atop arched vaults, photographed during construction. The arches display the same glazed brick, the same geometric precision, the same absence from official plans. In Warsaw, the Jabłonowski Palace, rebuilt in 1881, incorporated existing subterranean chambers that engineers described as of extraordinary workmanship, predating known construction. In Vienna, the Ringstrasse buildings of the 1870s and 1880s repeatedly encountered buried infrastructure during foundation work. A Viennese engineering journal from 1879 notes, "Subterranean vaults of regular geometry discovered beneath multiple construction sites. Their builders remain unknown." All these cities appear on 18th century maps within or adjacent to regions labeled Tartaria. The architectural signatures, glazed brick, geometric domes, oversized conduits, impossible precision, repeated across national boundaries, across supposed eras, across official narratives, that claimed no connection existed. The most unsettling discovery came from studying ground-level windows. Throughout St. Petersburg, buildings from the 1880s and 1890s display basement windows that sit at or below street level, windows that would have been useless for light or ventilation if built at their current position. An 1885 photograph of Nevsky Prospect shows the same buildings with these windows positioned higher, at normal basement height. The street level had risen between 1885 and the present day, not gradually over centuries, but within decades. Municipal records attribute this to deliberate street raising for drainage improvement, but the scale was extraordinary. In some areas, street levels rose by 2 meters or more. Some Tartarian researchers argue this represents evidence of catastrophic mud deposition, the so-called mud flood, that buried the lower floors of buildings across Eurasia. The official explanation, planned urban engineering, does not account for the speed, the scale, or the consistent burial of architectural features across multiple cities. The windows that once opened at street level now peer out from darkness, their purpose erased. I returned to the original Nevsky Prospect building with new questions. If the lower floors predated the 1890 construction, who built them? And why were they buried? A property deed from 1887 describes the lot as vacant land with subterranean remnants of earlier construction. Earlier construction? The deed does not specify what construction or when it occurred. The 1890 builders did not create the foundation, they built upon it. An architect's note from the same period, preserved in the State Historical Archive, reads, "Existing substructure adapted to current design. Lower chambers sealed as impractical for modern use." Adapted, sealed. The vocabulary implied inheritance, not creation. The 1890 builders encountered something older, incorporated what was useful, and sealed what they did not understand. The same pattern appeared in renovation records from across the city, across the continent, engineers discovering, documenting briefly, then closing access forever. What remains beneath St. Petersburg may never be fully mapped. Renovation permits from 1900 to 1940 repeat the same phrases across St. Petersburg: subterranean systems removed or filled. Lower chambers sealed per directive. Underground apparatus of unknown function dismantled. No diagrams survive, no photographs document what was removed. The erasure was systematic, not a conspiracy, but a bureaucratic reflex. Engineers encountered systems they could not explain, and the simplest solution was removal. A 1923 Soviet engineering report describes the discovery of the extensive tunnel networks beneath central Leningrad of pre-revolutionary origin and uncertain purpose. The tunnels connected multiple buildings along Nevsky Prospect, forming what appeared to be a unified system. The report recommended sealing all access points to prevent structural instability. By 1930, every documented entrance had been filled with concrete. The system, whatever its purpose, was erased from accessible history. Only the photographs remain, and the photographs show precision that the official timeline cannot explain. By now, I had identified a repeating pattern across dozens of buildings: buried lower floors, sealed doorways, oversized conduits, geometric chambers, windows at or below street level. The pattern appeared in St. Petersburg, Moscow, Warsaw, Vienna, and cities further west. All shared the same architectural DNA: glazed brick, identical dome radii, consistent conduit dimensions. All appeared in regions once labeled Tartaria on 18th century maps. Alternative researchers call this the Tartarian signature, evidence of a unified infrastructure network built by a civilization that mainstream history does not acknowledge, then buried and built upon during the 19th century. I cannot prove this theory, but I can document the pattern. Structures older than their official construction dates, precision beyond period capabilities, systematic erasure of whatever lay beneath. The evidence does not resolve into a conclusion, it resolves into a question. The most troubling observation was the consistency across supposed eras. Buildings constructed in 1850, 1870, 1890 and 1910 all displayed the same buried infrastructure, the same geometric signatures, the same evidence of earlier systems sealed during renovation. Either 19th century builders across multiple nations shared a hidden engineering tradition that no document records, or they built upon something older, something already in place when they arrived. The mudflood theory suggests catastrophic burial occurred in the early 19th century, submerging the lower floors of an earlier civilization's buildings. The 19th century construction was actually excavation, adaptation, and rebuilding atop what remained. I cannot verify this claim, but the photographs show buildings with buried windows, sealed doorways, and foundations of uncertain origin across an entire continent. The official histories describe innovation. The physical evidence suggests inheritance. The truth may lie somewhere between or beneath. I returned to the building on Nevsky Prospect one final time. The sealed doorway is no longer visible, plastered over, painted, forgotten. The basement now houses storage and mechanical systems, its lower reaches inaccessible. A building manager told me that workers occasionally report encountering old walls during repairs, walls made of stone different from the visible foundation. "We don't investigate," he said, "we just work around them." The photograph from 1891 remains in the archive, a doorway leading somewhere the records do not acknowledge, framed by stonework too precise for its supposed era, sealed and forgotten for over a century. Whatever lies beyond that doorway, whatever system it connected to, whatever civilization built it, all remain buried beneath the modern city. The Tartarian hypothesis offers one explanation. The official history offers silence. Neither fully accounts for what the photographs show. The investigation ends not with certainty, but with quiet reflection. In the archives, a final photograph lingers. The 1891 image of the sealed doorway, its stonework impossibly precise, its destination unknown. The official record says the building was constructed in 1890. The photograph shows something older beneath it. The renovation logs describe sealing, filling, closing access. What was removed was never documented. What remains is buried. Across St. Petersburg, across Europe, across regions once labeled Tartaria, the same pattern repeats. Buildings with buried floors, sealed chambers, windows at street level, foundations of uncertain origin. The evidence does not prove a lost civilization existed, but it documents something the official histories cannot explain, a layer beneath the 19th century built with precision beyond documented capabilities, systematically erased during modernization. The doorway in the photograph remains sealed. Whatever truth it guards has been buried for over a century. Unlike much of what researchers call Tartarian infrastructure, it lingers as a trace rather than a conclusion. Impossible to ignore, impossible to fully explain. I returned to the 1891 photograph one final time. The doorway is empty, dark, leading somewhere the camera could not follow. The stonework framing it remains perfectly aligned, too perfect for the era, too precise for the tools. The building above was constructed in 1890. The doorway beneath was sealed in 1892. In the century since, no one has recorded what lies beyond. The mud flood theory suggests burial. The official history suggests nothing. And somewhere beneath Nevsky Prospect, beneath the modern city, beneath layers of plaster and concrete and forgetting, the chamber waits, still sealed, still unexplained, still holding whatever truth the 19th century chose not to record.